Welcome, dear listener, to Jade Fox Tales, where ancient myths become the dreams into which you softly descend. I'm most grateful for your company this evening and for the quiet moment you have chosen to spend here. Tonight, we journey to the still waters of an ancient lake in China, where the surface lies calm and unbroken, yet something unseen is said to dwell far below. It is a tale of mystery, of quiet power, and of the delicate balance between what is known and what remains hidden beneath the surface. For in these old stories, the world is seldom as it first appears, and what lies unseen may hold both wonder and consequence for those who draw too near. You need not follow each word too closely. Should your thoughts begin to wander, you may let them do so. And if sleep should find you before the tale has reached its end, you may welcome it without concern. The story will continue, whether heard or not, as deep waters remain silent and undisturbed through the passing of time. Before we begin, let us allow the day to fall gently away. Take a slow breath in and let it go again, unhurried. There is no need to guide the breath, only to notice its quiet rhythm. The world beyond this moment may wait. For now, there is nowhere you must be, and nothing that requires your attention. And so, in this quiet interval, we turn gently towards tonight's tale, a story of a hidden dragon and of the quiet depths in which it lies. And now, dear listener, let the body rest. Let the mind grow still and allow yourself to drift as the story begins. Long before the roads of merchants crossed the valleys of China, and long before the great cities rose beside the wide rivers, there existed a small and quiet village resting beside a lake of remarkable stillness. The lake was known simply as Longtan, the dragon pool. It lay nestled between forested hills whose peaks were often crowned with drifting white clouds. From afar, the lake appeared perfectly calm, its surface as smooth as polished jade. Yet the villagers who lived beside its shore believed the water was not as peaceful as it seemed, for beneath its silent depths, they said, slept an ancient spirit, a dragon, not a fierce beast of flame and destruction, but one of the old celestial guardians, one of the wise Chinese dragons who governed wind, rain, and rivers. The village itself was small, wooden houses with curved tile roofs lined the narrow paths between rice fields and bamboo groves. Fishermen rose early each morning, pushing their narrow boats out into the lake before the sun lifted above the mountains. Farmers worked patiently in the surrounding terraces where rice grew in shimmering green rows. Life passed gently there. In the evenings, smoke from the cooking fires curled upward into the twilight sky, and lanterns glowed softly beside wooden doorways. Children played beside the shore until the elders called them home. And always, beyond the village, the lake remained, still, silent, watching. Among the villagers there lived an elderly storyteller named Master Lin. Each evening he would sit beside the stone well at the center of the village, where travelers sometimes stopped to drink and rest their feet. Children gathered around him eagerly, for Master Lin possessed a voice that seemed to carry the calm rhythm of the mountains themselves. One evening, as the moon rose pale and round above the lake, a young boy asked a question that many had wondered before him. Master Lin, the boy said softly, is it true that a dragon lives beneath the water? The old man smiled gently. My child, he replied, the lake has always belonged to the dragon. The children leaned closer. But you must understand, Master Lin continued, that not all dragons are creatures of terror. The ancient dragon of heaven and water are guardians of balance. They guide the rain that feeds the rice fields. They stir the winds that carried the clouds. The boy looked towards the moonlit lake. Have you ever seen it? Marcelin's eye drifted towards the distant water. For many years, he said slowly, the dragon has remained asleep. But once, long ago, the lake stirred. Among those listening that evening was a quiet young man named Wei. Wei was the son of a fisherman who had spent his life casting nets upon the calm waters of Longtan. And like the other villagers, Wei often preferred solitude. He would take a small boat onto the lake before dawn, allowing the mist to drift around him as the world softly awakened. To him, the lake felt alive. Sometimes, as the fog moved across the water, he believed he could sense something vast beneath the surface, not threatening, but watchful, patient, and older than the mountains that surrounded the village. One morning, just before sunrise, Wei rowed his boat forward towards the center of the lake. The air was unusually still. Even the birds seemed quiet. He lowered his net gently into the water and waited. Moments passed. Then something unusually occurred. A ripple appeared across the perfectly calm lake. Not a ripple of wind, not a splash of fish, but a slow and powerful movement beneath the water itself. Wave froze. The lake's surface trembled softly around his boat. A deep shape seemed to pass beneath him, so enormous that the water rose slightly before settling once again into perfect stillness. Wei stared down into the dark depths. For a brief moment, far below the surface, he thought he saw something move. A faint glimmer, like the reflection of golden scales in the dark water. The boat rocked gently as the lake grew calm once more. Wei's heart beat slowly but steadily. He did not feel fear. Instead, a strange sense of awe filled his chest. For deep within the silent lake of Longtan, something ancient had stirred. In the days that followed Wei's strange encounter upon the waters of Longtan. A quiet unease settled gently over the village. Nothing appeared greatly changed at first glance. The fishermen still rose before dawn. The farmers still walked their narrow paths between the rice terraces. Children still chased one another along the dusty lanes beside the bamboo groves. And yet, beneath the peaceful rhythm of daily life, something subtle had begun to shift. The lake itself no longer seemed quite so still. The restless water, those who ventured out into the water began to notice it first. The surface of Longtan, once as calm as polished glass, now stared at odd and unpredictable moments. Sometimes a ripple would travel across the lake despite the complete absence of wind, and other times the water would seem to rise ever so slightly, as though something vast had turned slowly in its sleep beneath the depths. Old fishermen who had known the lake for half a century began to speak in quiet voices among themselves. "The water is waking," one of them murmured one evening as he mended his fishing net beside the shore. Another nodded gravely. "It feels as it did in my grandfather's time." Way, listening from a short distance away, felt his heart stir uneasily, for he alone had seen the movement beneath the water, and he alone had glimpsed the faint shimmer that passed beneath his small wooden boat. Master Lynn's warning. That evening, the villagers gathered once again beside the old stone well where Master Lynn told his stories. But this night, the storyteller did not smile as warmly as he usually did. His gaze wandered often towards the lake, whose moonlit surface gleamed faintly beyond the dark silhouette of the trees. "The lake remembers," he said quietly to those gathered around him. "What does it remember?" one of the villagers asked. Master Lin folded his hands within the long sleeves of his robe. "Long before this village was built," he said, "the dragon beneath Longtan guarded these waters." His voice grew softer, as though speaking of something sacred. "The Chinese dragon who sleeps beneath the lake is no ordinary creature. He's one of the old water spirits, a keeper of rain, river, and cloud. The children lean closer, though the adults remained silent. For many generations, he had slept peacefully beneath the mountain springs that feed the lake. But when the balance of the land is disturbed, Master Lin paused. Even ancient dragons may awaken. A hush fell over the small gathering. The villagers glanced towards the lake, its surface shimmering quietly beneath the pale moonlight, perfectly calm. And yet no one present that evening felt entirely at ease. Strange weather. In the following days, the skies above the village began to behave strangely. Thick clouds gathered quickly over the mountains, even when the morning had begun bright and clear. Short bursts of rain swept across the Rhine fields without warning, leaving the earth soaked and glistening. Sometimes thunder rolled faintly in the distance, though no storm could be seen. The farmers welcomed the rain at first, but soon they noticed something unusual. The rains came too often. The irrigation channels began to overflow. The ground near the lake softened into deep mud. Even the bamboo grooves whispered restlessly whenever the wind passed through them. Master Lin watched the changing skies with quiet concern. For the old storyteller knew what the young villagers did not. These were signs that the spirits beneath the lake are stirring once more. Wei returns to the water. Despite the growing unease among the villagers, Wei continued his morning journeys onto the lake. If anything, he felt drawn to the water more strongly than before. Something within him longed to understand the mystery that slept beneath Longtan. One misty morning, before even the birds had begun their song, Wei pushed his small boat quietly from the shore. The lake lay wrapped in thick silver fog. The mountains were little more than shadows beyond the drifting mist. Wei rowed slowly towards the center of the lake. The gentle splash of his oars, the only sound in the stillness. For a long time, nothing unusual occurred. The water remained calm. The fog drifted silently across the surface. Wei lowered his net and waited. Then suddenly the lake breathed. It was the only way he could describe it. The water rose slowly beneath the boat, lifting it as though carried upon the back of some enormous creature far below. Wei gripped the edge of the boat as the water swelled gently around him. A deep movement passed beneath the lake, not violent, not angry, but powerful beyond imagining. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the motion ceased. The lake returned to perfect stillness. The golden glimmer. Wei leaned over the edge of the boat and stared into the water. The mist parted slightly above the surface, and there, far below the dark water, he saw it once again. A faint glow, golden, soft but unmistakable. It moved slowly through the depths like a drifting lantern beneath the lake. Wei held his breath. The glow grew brighter for a brief moment, and in that instant he glimpsed something extraordinary, a curve of immense scales, long and elegant, each scale reflecting the faintest glimmer of golden light. The shape moved gracefully through the darkness before vanishing once more into the depths of Longtan. Wei sat back slowly in the boat. His hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with awe. For now, he knew the old stories were true. Beneath the silent waters of the lake, an ancient dragon had begun to awaken. The secret beneath Longtan. As Wei returned to shore that morning, the mist slowly lifted from the lake. The village came into view between the bamboo trees. Smoke rose peacefully from the cooking fires. Children began their morning chores. Life continued as it always had. Yet Wei knew that something profound had changed. The dragon beneath the lake was no longer entirely asleep. Something had disturbed the ancient balance of the land, and sooner or later the spirit of the water would rise. Whether its awakening would bring blessings or disaster, no one yet knew. But deep beneath the dark waters of Longtan, the great guardian of the lake had opened its ancient eyes. In the quiet days that followed Wei's second encounter upon the waters of Longtan, the village carried on with its usual rhythm, though a delicate thread of unease had woven itself into daily life. The lake had always been respected. Now it was watched. From the stone path that curved along the shore, villagers often paused to gaze across the broad silver surface of the water, as though expecting something extraordinary to rise from its depths. Yet the lake revealed nothing. It remained tranquil, patient, silent as an ancient secret. Only Wei felt certain that the stillness concealed something far greater than any villager yet understood. One afternoon, seeking solitude from the growing whispers of the village, Wei wandered along a narrow path that followed the northern edge of the lake. Few villagers traveled that way. The ground there was uneven and tangled with old roots, and the bamboo groves grew thick and shadowed beside the water. The path eventually climbed a small hill overlooking the lake, and there, half hidden beneath creeping moss and ancient stone, Wei discovered something he had never noticed before: a shrine. Time had nearly erased it. The stone steps had sunk into the earth. The wooden beams of the small temple leaned with age. Carvings along the entrance pillars were softened by centuries of rain and wind. Yet one image remained unmistakable: a dragon, long and graceful, its body curved across the weathered stones with elegant power, its whiskered face lifted towards the clouds. Wei stepped quietly into the small shrine. Dust drifted through the thin beams of afternoon light that entered through the broken roof. At the center of the room stood a simple stone altar. Upon its surface rested a faded bronze bowl, once used for offerings. Wei knelt slowly beside it. and as he studied the dragon carved into the altar's front, he felt a quiet certainty settle within his thoughts. The shrine had been built long ago to honor the spirit beneath the lake, the guardian of Longtan, the ancient Chinese dragon whose presence shaped the waters of the valley. That evening, Wei sought out Master Lin beside the old stone well. The storyteller listened patiently as Wei described the forgotten shrine and the carvings he had seen there. For a long moment the old man said nothing. At last he sighed softly. "I wondered if anyone would find it again," he said. "You knew of the shrine?" Wei asked. Master Lin nodded. "When I was a child, my grandfather once brought me there. The villagers used to visit it long ago to give thanks for rain and for the calm waters of the lake." Wei looked towards the distant hills. Why did they stop? The old man's eyes darkened slightly. Because people forget. Years passed without drought or flood. The lake seemed peaceful, and slowly the villagers began to believe the old stories were only stories. He folded his hands within his sleeves, but the dragon beneath Longtan has never been merely a tale. Wei hesitated before speaking again. "I have seen it," he said quietly. Master Lin did not appear surprised. Instead, he simply nodded, as though confirming a truth he had long suspected. "Then the guardian of the lake has chosen to reveal itself to you." That night the sky changed. Dark clouds gathered above the mountains as though summoned by an unseen command. Wind moved restlessly through the bamboo groves. By midnight the storm arrived. Rain fell in heavy sheets across the village, drumming upon rooftops and flooding the narrow paths between the houses. Thunder rolled across the sky with deep echoes that seemed to shake the hills themselves. Wei stood at the doorway of his home, watching the distant lake. Lightning flashed briefly across the dark sky, and in that sudden brightness he saw something astonishing. The surface of Longtan was no longer calm. The water churned and rose in slow swirling currents, as though the lake itself were turning within its vast basin. Another flash of lightning illuminated the scene, and for a single breath of time, Wei saw a great shape move beneath the water. Immense, serpentine, graceful beyond imagination. The dragon was rising. Drawn by a force he could not explain, Wei ran through the rain towards the lake shore. The storm raged around him, yet the closer he came to the water, the quieter the wind seemed to grow. When he reached the shore, he saw something even stranger. At the center of the lake, the water had begun to swirl slowly inwards, forming a great circular current. The movement was not violent, it was deliberate, like the slow opening of a hidden doorway. Then, to Wei's astonishment, a narrow path appeared across the surface of the lake. The swirling water parted gently, revealing a submerged stone walkway descending into the depths. Lantern-like light shimmered faintly beneath the water, illuminating the path as though welcoming him. Wei hesitated only a moment. Then he stepped forward. The water did not touch him. It curved gently away from the path as he descended. Above him, the storm continued to rage. But beneath the surface of Longtan, there was only silence. The stone path led deeper and deeper beneath the lake. Strangely, the air remained clear and calm. Soft golden lights glowed along the walls of a vast underwater cavern. Wei soon realized he was no longer walking along a simple path. He had entered a palace built of ancient jade-colored stone and adorned with carvings of clouds, rivers, and winding dragons. Tall pillars rose towards the ceiling that shimmered like the surface of water. Schools of small fish drifted lazily through the vast chamber, their scales reflecting the soft golden glow. At the far end of the hall stood an enormous gate carved entirely from pale stone. The gate slowly opened, and from the shadows beyond it emerged a presence so magnificent that Wei instinctively fell to his knees. The dragon of Longtan had awakened. great Chinese dragon glided forward through the vast chamber with effortless grace. Its body was long and elegant, covered in shimmering scales that glowed faintly like polished gold. Flowing whiskers drifted gently in the water around its noble face. Its eyes, deep and ancient, held a calm wisdom that seemed older than the mountains themselves. When the dragon spoke, its voice filled the chamber like distant thunder softened by rain. Rise, child of the village. Wei slowly lifted his head. You have seen what others have forgotten, the dragon continued. You remember the old shrine. You listened to the voice of the lake. Wei bowed deeply. Great guardian, he said softly, why have you awakened? For a long moment, the dragon remained silent. Its vast eyes turned upward towards the distant surface of the lake far above. The balance of this land has begun to change, it said at last. The forests beyond the mountains are being cut away. The rivers that feed this lake grow restless. The harmony between the people and the waters has weakened. Wei felt a chill pass through him. Can it be restored? The dragon's gaze returned to him. That is why you have been brought here. The great dragon lowered its long head until its golden eyes met Wei's. You must carry a message to your people, it said. The lake has protected this valley for centuries, but guardianship requires respect in return. If the people remember the ancient balance, Longtan will continue to bring rain, calm waters, and life to the land. But if the balance is ignored, the dragon's voice softens. Even a guardian cannot prevent what the waters may become. Wei bowed deeply once more. I will tell them. The dragon studied him for a moment longer. Then, with a slow, graceful motion, he turned back towards the glowing hall of the palace. The path will return you to the surface. And remember, Wei of the village. The dragon's voice echoed gently through the chamber. The lake is alive. Moments later, Wei found himself once again standing beside the quiet shore of Longtan. The storm had passed. The clouds drifted slowly apart, revealing the pale light of dawn spreading across the sky above China. The lake was calm once more, perfectly still, yet Wei knew that beneath its peaceful surface rested a guardian older than memory, and now the fate of the village depended upon whether its people would remember the ancient bond between the land and the dragon beneath the lake. When Wei returned to the village that morning, the first light of dawn was spreading gently across the valley. The storm had passed during the night. Fresh rain glistened upon the leaves of the bamboo groves, and the rice field shimmered like mirrors beneath the pale morning sky. Longtan, the dragon pool, lay once again as still as polished jade. No ripple disturbed its surface. No sign remained of the hidden path that carried way beneath its depths. Yet Wei knew with absolute certainty that what he had witnessed had not been a dream. Deep beneath the tranquil waters rested the ancient guardian of the lake, the noble Chinese dragon whose wisdom had watched over the valley for centuries. And now the fate of the village rested upon whether its people would remember what they had long forgotten. That evening the villagers gathered once more beside the old stone well. News of the night's strange storm had already stirred many questions. Some spoke of the thunder that had shaken the hills. Others whispered of seeing the lake glow faintly during the darkest hours of the night. When Wei arrived, Master Lin was already seated upon the low stone wall beside the well. The old storyteller looked at him with knowing eyes. "Tell them," he said gently. So Wei did. He spoke quietly, yet every person gathered there listened with deep attention. He told them of the forgotten shrine upon the hill. He told them of the storm and the swirling waters. And at last, with calm reverence, he spoke of the great dragon palace hidden beneath the lake. Some villagers gasped softly. Others remained silent, their faces thoughtful. But when Wei described the ancient guardian, the majestic Chinese dragon whose golden scales shone like lantern lights beneath the water, no one laughed, for in their hearts each of them had always known that the lake held secrets older than the village itself. When we finished, the night had grown quiet. At last, Master Lin rose slowly to his feet. The dragon beneath Longtan has protected this village since before our ancestors first built their homes here, he said. And yet, over the years, we allowed ourselves to forget. He turned his gaze towards the dark outline of the hills. But the Guardian has not abandoned us. It has simply reminded us of the balance we must keep. The following morning, the villagers walked together along the narrow path that climbed the northern hill. Few had visited the place in many years, yet when they reached the old shrine and saw its weathered stone and moss-covered roof, many felt a quiet sense of regret. Nature had slowly reclaimed the small temple. Bamboo leaves had gathered across the steps. Vines curled along the ancient carvings, but the dragon carved into the stone pillars remained clearly visible, graceful, timeless, watching silently over the lake below. Without needing to speak, the villagers began their work. Some cleared the fallen branches and tangled vines. Others swept the dust and leaves from the shrine floor. The fishermen repaired the wooden beams that had begun to rot with age. The farmers brought fresh incense and simple offerings of rice and fruit. Even the children helped, carrying small stones to rebuild the crumbling steps. For many days, the quiet work continued, and slowly the forgotten shrine returned to life. At last, on a peaceful evening, when the sky glowed softly with the colors of sunset, the villagers gathered before the restored shrine. Lanterns flickered gently along the stone path. Incense smoke drifted upward into the warm evening air. Master Lin stepped forward and bowed deeply before the altar. "We give thanks," he said softly. "Thanks for the rain that nourishes our fields. Thanks for the calm waters that feed our village. And thanks for the Guardian who has watched over this valley for centuries." The villagers bowed together. For a moment, The world seemed very still. Below them, the lake shimmered quietly in the fading light. And then something extraordinary happened. A ripple spread slowly across the surface of Longtan. At first it was gentle, barely noticeable among the reflection of the evening sky. But soon the ripple widened, traveling gracefully across the entire lake. The villagers watched in silent wonder. From the center of the water rose a faint golden glow. It shimmered beneath the surface like a distant lantern moving through the depths. Slowly, gracefully, the immense shape of the ancient Chinese dragon passed beneath the water. Though the dragon did not fully rise from the lake, its presence was unmistakable. The glow of its scales illuminated the dark waters for a peaceful moment, and then, as gently as it had appeared, the great guardian drifted once more into the depths of Longtan. The lake returned to stillness, yet every person felt a quiet certainty of what they had just witnessed. The dragon had accepted their offering. From that day forward, the villagers of Longtan never again forgot the ancient balance between their lives and the waters that sustained them. The shrine upon the hill remained tended and respected. Offerings were placed there during the change of the seasons. The forests along the mountain slopes were carefully preserved, and the lake itself was always treated with patience and gratitude. Over the years, the village continued to prosper. The rice fields remained fertile. The rains arrived when they were needed, and the waters of Longtan stayed calm and generous. Though the dragon beneath the lake was rarely seen again, the villagers knew it was always there, watching, guarding, sleeping peacefully beneath the quiet water. Many years later, when Wei himself had grown old, he often sat beside the same stone well where Master Lin had once told his stories. Children gathered around him, just as they had gathered around the old storyteller long before. And sometimes, when the moon shone brightly across the lake, one of them would ask the same question that had been asked generations earlier. Is it true a child might whisper? that a dragon lives beneath the lake, where he would smile softly and gaze towards the silver water of Longtan. Yes, he would say gently, but remember, the dragon is not something to fear. It is a guardian, a keeper of balance between the people and the world around them. The children would glance towards the lake with wide and wondering eyes, and if the night was very quiet and the moonlight lay softly upon the water, they might sometimes see a faint ripple move across the surface of Longtan, a quiet reminder that deep beneath the tranquil lake of China, the ancient Chinese dragon still slept, watching over the valley as it had done for centuries, and as it would continue to do for many peaceful generations to come.